Welcome to the Lockdown Economy, a social non-profit initiative by the think tank AlterContacts to help small businesses and self-employed professionals overcome the challenges of the pandemic and reactivate the economy. My name is Karen Ertrachter, and today our guest is Karen Ertrachter, the founder and owner of Netherlands Bagels, based in Rotterdam. Hello, Karen. How are you today?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good too. Karen, thank you so much for being with us again, because this is actually your second interview with Lockdown Economy already. For those of our viewers who are new to Lockdown Economy, could you tell us a bit more about your business?
Sure. I run a online web shop called Netherlands Bagels, where we sell fresh baked New York style bagels that we bake entirely in Rotterdam.
Really nice. And based on your first interview, I understand that, yeah, you're originally from New York, so bagels are somewhat of a passion of yours, personal interest, and you decided to make a business of it. Yeah, could
Mm.
you tell us a bit more about that, sort of what drives you as an entrepreneur?
Well, this is not my first business, actually. And following prior to Corona, I had quite different work. But bagels have long been a very strong passion of mine, and I started baking my own bagels some years ago, actually, after I moved to the Netherlands, and I was just missing them and unable to find what I wanted. So I decided to teach myself. Yeah, after Corona began, I decided to pivot, and at least I spent quite some months researching every step of the process, and then I ended up starting Netherlands Bagels in October of 2020.
All right, really interesting. So you mentioned it now already. So that of course means that you started your business in the midst of the pandemic. Could you tell us a bit about yeah, how that's been and how the pandemic in generally has affected your business over the last months?
Um, yeah, it's been a very wild ride. We've gone through now, I think, 3 lockdowns here in the Netherlands. So every lockdown brings more challenges and questions of what will happen next. We had a curfew that began in January, and at that moment, I had to think, okay, can we still deliver? How will this impact us? But luckily, it didn't impact us as much as I expected.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like a lot of that uncertainty, obviously, it does bring some stress, but you also have to
Mm.
take into account the whole lockdown situation. And but yeah, the good thing is that because I started in the middle of Corona, my business model has been well suited to what is going on during Corona, and that's the only advantage I think of that.
Yeah, definitely. So, sort of while starting to plan your business, you only started planning your business also when the lockdown then or Corona had already hit Europe, so to say. Did I get that correctly?
Yeah, I think
Okay,
we're
so
in the first or second lockdown here in the Netherlands.
all right, that's really really good to hear that in that sense, at least you were spared some time to, yeah, having to reconfigure your business model as a whole, but rather just, yeah, get started from the onset. That's really good to hear. And how are you sort of communicating, for example, with your customers? How are you getting feedback maybe on, yeah, your distribution on your channels, on your business model essentially?
Well, when I began, my business model is very dependent on being able to contact my customers through social media,
Hmm.
through email, occasionally phone calls, but we do have customers who do pick up face to face, but masked up outside. Um, so that is definitely something that we do, but the feedback has been really lovely. I think a lot of my clients are people who are foreigners in the Netherlands who've lived in the US. And, obviously a lot of us are stuck here during the pandemic and unable to go home. So it's been a small creature comfort to be able to have some good bagels, even if you can't travel to New York right now.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah, it's a source of comfort, something you know well, and that, yeah, can sort of guide you a bit through the lockdown, especially now that, yeah, of course, sort of takeaway and food has become such an important part of our daily life, considering that everything else has sort of fizzled away. So you mentioned social media as sort of your main channel of communication with your customers.
Mm-hmm.
Could you maybe tell us a bit more about how you maybe also use social media for marketing purposes to increase your visibility as a business?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely connected with other businesses. I think in the previous interview, I discussed how I'd work with some local influencers and bloggers, and that also was a really good experience for getting that initial jump.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, usually I try to post a couple times a week, either on the actual feed or also on stories. And I think maybe because we're all isolated, people, my customers have been incredibly friendly. And so we've had a lot of chats like online. And so I'm really looking forward to post-corona, hopefully doing some markets around the Netherlands and finally meeting everyone face to face.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So you mentioned, of course, that the situation is characterized by a lot of uncertainty. You mentioned the sort of curfew being established in the Netherlands earlier in the year, and sort of the entrepreneurial need, so to say, to react to all of that. What are you doing at the moment to really make the most of the situation as it is, with continuous uncertainty as to whether or not measures will be partially lifted soon?
I don't expect measures will be lifted soon, so I'm planning on the worst. That's one way to put it. I don't expect anything to change for at least 3 months. We might have outdoor dining maybe in a few months, but fundamentally, I don't think it will change things that quickly. Our numbers are unfortunately quite high at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think April will be, the miracle month that, we've all been hoping for outdoor dining and terraces. It's a shame because, I wish we could have terraces open. There's so many restaurants that are so dependent on sit-in dining and that atmosphere, but it's not safe. So yeah, our business model is very dependent on delivery as a result of this. So that's part of that from the beginning, that was part of my plan, because I knew that I did not want to have face-to-face contact with most of my clients, just to be safe, of course. And it was kind of a risk reduction. But yeah, it's been the uncertainty is something. Yeah, I think everyone I know who's an entrepreneur is kind of dealing with, and it's kind of, a lot of people are kind of going the route of they want to bet on it improving quickly, and we all of course want it to, but the reality is this has been the situation for months, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess you could say that to some extent, sort of planning for the worst, as you mentioned, bears a certain certainty in itself, that you can then at least sort of say, okay, I will plan with this, and then maybe get positively surprised. So you mentioned that you sort of also connect with other entrepreneurs. I think last time you also mentioned, for example, like WhatsApp groups as a means to communicate. Could you tell us a bit more about sort of the importance of networking during times like this?
Yeah, the whole way we actually got started was was unfortunately, they just recently closed a bakery in Rotterdam, run by an American entrepreneur. And I had been doing some errands right before we opened, and I had some samples, and I was looking for some businesses that I could work with. And I ended up approaching her and actually leaving her some samples of my bagels just to try. We ended up connecting and really hitting it off, and I'm very glad to call her a good friend. And that, I think at the end of the day, like a lot of the connections I forged were mostly through WhatsApp groups, but also just pure introductions and just getting to know people in the course of my business. And that's been really wonderful. I am in a WhatsApp group for food entrepreneurs, and that's been very helpful to an extent. But I think connecting with entrepreneurs who have been established for this period has also been very interesting to see how they've pivoted, and to see what other people are doing to survive this period. And that's also been a bit of an inspiration as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's often, of course, helpful to get a sort of different set of eyes on things, hear how other entrepreneurs, similar businesses are handling the crisis. So that's really good to hear that that's been working out well for you. I was curious because you did mention sort of that delivery is your main pillar of your business at this moment. Do you do the delivery yourself, or are you actually working together with other distributors?
I found a courier who was recommended by someone who shares a kitchen with me, that she's been using for some years now, and he's able to do same day delivery anywhere in the Netherlands. That's quite rare, to say the
Yeah.
least. We have to be done quite early for this to work, but yeah, I'm very glad to have found him. But we also have been delivering by mail as well. But I've moved a little bit more to same day delivery for larger orders.
Okay, that's really really cool. That's been working out so well. Yeah, same day delivery anywhere in the Netherlands. I think that's quite impressive. So that the bagel is basically still warm when it's delivered to my doorstep.
Well, it's not warm, unfortunately. This is like the one downside, that if the bagel's warm and we shut the box, the whole box gets
Of
steamy.
course, yeah.
But it is, as fresh as it can be without being warm. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent, really good. Well, Karen, kind of looking back at these last couple of months, because you've been in crisis mode ever since starting your business. What would you say are some of your biggest learnings as an entrepreneur in maneuvering through this crisis?
I think just trying to come up with a kind of fail-safe of kind of how things are going to operate during this period, and what can be profitable, what can work,
Mhm.
and having that basic plan has kind of been one of the most important things. But more importantly, I think there has been some very unique challenges of this period, and for me, kind of learning flexibility and just kind of, there are things that I've never, I never anticipated when I was building a business plan for this, um, including in November and December. It's a big holiday period in the Netherlands. And, the mail got insane because we had just gone into another lockdown. And the mail went crazy, and there were insane mail delays as a result. And at that time, we were not active with same day delivery, and we had some insane delays. You
Mm.
can't anticipate, and there's no means to get anyone anything. And so this is the kind of thing that you can't really anticipate. It just happens, and you kind of have to go with what kind of deal with the challenges of it, and try not to get too bogged down in trying to expect everything that's going to happen. You just have to kind of learn to flow with it, and just ensure that those customers who are unhappy, to reach out to them and try to do your best, because they also understand that this is a hard time to be operating business.
Yes, of course. So a good mixture then perhaps of sort of thinking on your feet, but then also really having that dialogue with the customers where of course they are understanding of your situation and the particular challenges that come with it at this point.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing that. And to kind of round off today's interview, could you maybe again name 3 things that you could use help with at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment, we are going to move to new location in May along with my whole kitchen, so I'm very excited. And we're currently figuring out kind of what is going to be next. And that's something that will be, it's a big question of, how do we move forward from here? How, will this be something that we continue doing? What do we continue post Corona? What is still relevant? And so that's kind of a question. So I'm redoing currently the menu at the moment and trying to think about, okay, what is the future for this business? And will this new idea work? But there's no way to know until you try it. And the biggest other hurdle, and I think I said this in the first one, is financing for people in Horeca is incredibly limited right now.
Mhm.
And as a result, the ability for us to get our own kitchen would be quite limited because banks do not want to lend to people in Horeca. So for the time being, we're continuing staying the course with the kitchen. I quite like the people in my kitchen, so it's all right, but I would love to, of course, have my own kitchen, and this is definitely a hurdle that came with Corona.
Yeah, I see. Well, thank you for sharing that. And yeah, we're going to make sure to get your message out there and keep our fingers crossed that, yeah, hopefully someday soon you can, yeah, fulfill your dream of having your own kitchen. So thank you, Karen, so much for being with us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us here today. Karen, do you have any last words to our viewers out there?
No, just would like to thank them for listening to my story. And yeah.
All right, that's great. Feel free to contact Karen using any of the links in the description of this video below. I invite you to like this video and subscribe to our channel. On our channel, you can find many more insights from entrepreneurs in many different countries and business sectors. So please have a look and stay tuned.